We are blessed today to have three people here who know quite a bit about fungi. Our guest of honor, Michael Weese. Hello. The self-taught expert, and he's going to be teaching us a lot of things today. We also have my good friend Pat from Chesapeake Farm in Calvert County. He supplies us with shiitake mushrooms, asparagus, and strawberries, fresh delivered just about every day when we're in season. Now, what is your last name? Anders. I never knew it. That is a former USDA mycologist, expert in the field. We also have my good friend Eric Lewis, who went to do something. He is just a general plant guru, teaching many classes here this morning. So I'm not going to take up any more time, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Michael.
Growing mushrooms is just a matter of creating a competition-free environment, pretty much. Really, there's no such thing as that in nature, but we're trying to get as close as we can in the lab. When you want to grow mushrooms, you have to start out with either a spore print or a culture print. Culture being just a piece of tissue from the fruit or a piece of mycelium from the mass growing in the ground. Now, before we really talk about growing them too much though, I want to talk about the structure of the mushroom and what the life cycle of the organism. So a mushroom starts as a spore. It's pretty much a gamete. It's half the genetic information necessary to make another separate organism and life form. Before I keep going, I want to introduce my friend Eric here for a second.
Hello.
So you start out with the spore. The spore hits a bioenvironment that is favorable for the growth of that spore. The casing of this spore will crack, and one single hair comes out of that spore. It's called a hyphae. And that hyphae goes into the surroundings and starts exuding enzymes. And these enzymes break down all of the stuff that it can work with as food around it, and then it kind of soaks it up as it goes. So as it grows, it's branching off and growing in the direction of optimal nutrients. So you can end up with all kinds of crazy shapes for a mycelial mass. And when I say mycelial mass, I mean that's the network of hairs that form off of the spore under the ground or in the tree or whatever it's growing in. When you pick a mushroom, it's a lot like picking an apple off a tree. You're not hurting that organism or taxing it at all. All you're doing is spreading its spores pretty much. Most of that organism lives under the ground unscathed. So we're going to do a couple of different methods of creating that competition-free environment today. And it's all about learning all the different directions you can go once you have that mycelial mass established from the spore or from the culture. You can even start a mycelial mass or culture from store-bought mushrooms. You know, from the button mushrooms that you're eating or from oyster mushrooms. You just cut the bud off and put it in a favorable environment. I wanted also to pass around page 80 of this book, because once I saw page 80 of this book, my head ripped open to a whole new world of possibilities. It makes you realize that you don't need to follow blow-by-blow instructions for all these texts. The sky's the limit of imagination. I think the easiest project at home would probably be oysters. You would take the cluster that you get at the store, and you want to look for the fuzziest spot on the butt of that cluster. Okay? Cut that off, keep it somewhere clean for a minute, and you take cardboard or paper or straw, anything containing cellulose, and you want to boil it on the stove in a pot of water or whatever. It doesn't even have to be that long. You take that cardboard and paper out, put it in a little plastic container, make sure it's well drained, doesn't have water pooled up, and put that little butt in there and roll it up in the cardboard and put it in your fridge for, I don't know, 2 months. Pull it out and you're going to have a white fuzzy mass, okay? You've just created some spawn to work with. From there, you can either take something like these bags or something like a bucket and put pasteurized substrate into. I actually brought wood pellets. You can get these at any co-op or anything like that. All you have to do is soak those in water and they break up and turn into sawdust. It's a super easy substrate to work with. Yeah, $6 for that whole bag. And I can make like 20 of these bags out of this. Right, so you're seeing how much money you can make off of these things growing. You want to take, I don't know, make maybe 15 pounds for the bucket, I guess. So that would be 15 cups of the pellets, and you have to supplement it because this is only cellulose. It doesn't have a whole lot of carbohydrates in it. So I use brown rice flour. For every 5 cups of this, I use 1 cup of brown rice flour. Okay? 15 cups of these, 3 cups of brown rice flour, and 18 cups of boiling water. Put it in this bucket, stir it up until it all breaks down, until all the pellets turn back into dust and are completely loose. Drill a couple holes in it, make sure it's nice and drained, wait a couple hours for it to get back to room temperature, and take that spawn that you have in your fridge, cut it up into little pieces, and throw it in the bucket and stir it up with all the stuff and put a lid on it. In a couple weeks, that whole bucket's going to be colonized with the mycelium. And you want to cut up your culture that you have because it gives it more surface area to touch the substrate with. The more surface area it has, the more exponentially fast it's going to colonize the substrate. That's why we use stuff like grain as opposed to one solid block, because this is a block of radiation sites that can be stirred up in a bag like this to help it colonize really fast. So, drill a couple holes in the bucket, you throw your culture in there, you wait for it to colonize, and then all you have to do is keep it in a favorable environment. Oysters pretty much fruit no matter what you do to them. So even if you have them out in your living room or whatever, you'll start to have oysters growing out of the holes in that bucket. But if you keep them in an area that has 85% humidity most of the time, you could get 5 or 6 flushes off of that bucket. The flush being every bloom, every time it blooms. So did you guys see page 80 of that book and the diagram of how you start out with the culture of the spores and then it runs in a lot of different directions on what you can do? One of those things was liquid culture. So once you have a piece of mycelium, you can put it in a solution of water and a little bit of sugar. 1 part sugar and 100 parts water, and it'll grow this stuff. All the mycelium's forming actually in this liquid culture. No sucrose, yeah. And you don't want to caramelize your sugars either, because if you heat it too long and they caramelize, then that's toxic to mushrooms and they won't grow on that. So once you're at the stage that he's at right now, you can inoculate that by a lot of different methods. By the cardboard method, by this liquid culture I could take and pour over it and just stir it up and wait for that to grow. There's a lot of different directions you can go. Oysters you can do in a laundry basket full of non-recyclable paper at home after you've boiled it. Get your spawn or whatever, or liquid culture, dump it in.
Will it grow out of the sides?
Yes. Yes.
That's cool.
That's good.
And you can see, it's got skin growing.
Oh, oyster mushroom. So really good. You eat oyster mushroom, you live 5,000 years.
I'm gonna case this one.
We're gonna try a really basic, non-sterile experiment here. I just grabbed some sawdust that's been sitting around the ground of the bounty for, I don't know, how long has that sawdust been there?
All winter.
All winter, there you go. And then this here is a little plastic container I found in the recycle bin over here at the bounty. This actually formerly held kimchi in it. So this is like, oh, this is not, this has got all kinds of lactobacillus. Let's go ahead and pass this around. I want everybody to zoom in super close on this to to where you can see the little white fuzzies, the little white cottony fuzz. That's mycelium. So go ahead and pass that around.
Now is now the time of year to start batch?
Anytime is the time of year to start a batch. All the time, every time.
So you're just cutting it, putting it in sand?
Yep, I'm just cutting up little pieces and putting it. This is totally not sterile. We're gonna do, this is like the most reckless mushroom experiment I've ever done, ever in history. So we'll just leave this out on a counter and we can see what it does. Maybe it'll get all infected with trichoderma, maybe it'll get all white and fuzzed up, and then we'll open it up and see mushrooms pop out. It's tough to say, but we're gonna just go like 100% on the faith that these mushrooms are strong enough to eat this sawdust, and we'll see what happens. So I'm just squeezing out the moisture out of this. They like to be at about like 70-80% moisture, is that right, more or less? Which is basically, if you squeeze as hard as you can, there should not be any more drips coming out of this. It should just be a little bit wet. 50?
So how scared would you be if, like, say they came up,
I wouldn't be scared at all. I would
no,
say
I just mean, like, that's the risk, right? That contamination by something that you don't want.
No, if they fruit, that means that they've overpowered whatever else is living on them enough to bear fruit, and they're clean enough. Plus, you're going to be cooking it. So let's say it got contaminated with trichoderma, which is that blue-green bread mold that penicillin comes from. So if they got infected with trichoderma, that's no big deal. In the first place, it's edible. In the second place, you can cook it and it'll die. I mean, you're gonna cook the mushrooms either way. And there's always bacteria and different organisms living on the surface of the mushroom. Sometimes macroorganisms, little beetles and bugs and stuff. That just adds to the protein content. So you remember I said this is the most reckless mushroom experiment I've ever done? Look at it go.
Wow.
It's just going to town in there. It's eating up all this sawdust, and eventually this whole thing will be colonized, and we'll just expand it right into a larger container again.
Oyster mushrooms, as far as like health benefits and stuff go, it has ergothioneine in it, which is one of the most powerful antioxidants. It's really good for your heart. It's got lovastatin in it, which lowers your blood cholesterol. It's 20 to 30% protein by dry weight, which is the highest protein content other than animal flesh in nature. They're amazing soil builders. Another thing with them, because they go mycorrhizal with plants a lot, and they increase the surface area of the roots, people use them in gardening and stuff, and their vegetables will just be huge. It just gives the plants such an advantage.
When we look at the water systems, when we look at our watersheds, the number 1 and 2 contaminants are like heavy metals and petrochemicals running off of the roads. So learning how to cultivate oyster mushrooms, we can take these cultures and expand them and get them going on straw bales or get them going on wood chips, and then put big piles of these myceliated substrates directly into the creek and let the creek water flow through them before it goes into the bigger river, and we can thereby clean up the bay, clean up our rivers, clean up our creeks, and take these toxic, it's not just, so like with the heavy metals, it's accumulating those, and now the mushroom is becoming toxic. But with the petrochemicals, it's actually taking the toxin and transforming it from a toxic substance into an edible substance. In theory, you could take mushrooms that you fed your motor oil to and safely eat them. I haven't tried it yet, but that's the rumor on the streets. And then you want to give me a hand here? So yeah, this is how scientific you have to be. About this much spawn to about that much wood chip. Look, you see all that whiteness? All that white fuzz? There we go. Boom, look at that. That's beautiful. You see how beautiful that is? Goodness.
It smells different now.
We're running with mycelium. So yeah, now we're gonna take this and just kind of mix it all around.
Here's a block of oyster mycelium. We'll make another basket full.
Right.
They could probably make 3 baskets full with this,
From
but
that, yeah.
whatever.
It just gives us a higher success rate, right? Higher probability.
That's why I like this. It's science, but it doesn't have to be an exact science. So
Right.
you
It
don't
can
need
be
a
a-
degree in math. You don't need very expensive measuring equipment.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but at first when I started looking into growing mushrooms, I was very overwhelmed looking into these books and seeing how many different options there are, how many factors there are, how many different ways. But having this come out and get this opportunity to see, hey, you know what, this is just one of the many.
It's a matter of taking all of those things and applying it to your current situation, and then taking the path of least resistance.
That's something I always like to encourage people. When you're getting into growing your own food, you're gonna kill stuff. It happens. Things die. Just keep experimenting until you find stuff that works. Don't get hard on yourself. The more that you try, the easier it'll get, and then all of a sudden, one day things will just start working.
You can run 1,000 different experiments from this one jar.